I don't want to say his nickname. I don't know his last name, but his name's John. He has a very specific nickname that I cannot say on camera. So, but yeah, TJ Radizak versus John. What's his last name?
Parker.
John Parker. Playing as John Parker. This is essentially for the slot because both of them have one loss. After this round, very likely that the winner will be able to draw into the top 8. So this is essentially a win and end for both players. So it should be fun to watch. I know TJ Radizak is going to be playing his breachless what do we call it? Nombo breach.
Non-bow breach.
Yeah, non-bow breach. That fair game plan we've been talking about all day. And do you know what John Parker's playing?
I do know what John Parker's playing. John Parker's playing blue-white control. So very similar to the list that we saw earlier today, where we've got a couple main deck chalices and the standard blue-white control, not splashing reds.
Sure.
So yeah, a couple Triomes in there to turn on, a couple Leyline bindings, but other than that, we've got a couple Shark Typhoons and the full Planeswalker suite available.
Yeah. You don't have to sell me on a Mystic Gate deck. Gotta say, one of my favorite lands ever printed, Mystic Gate. They had the Future Sight lands, right? That was the one that was future shifted.
Oh no, it was actually Graven Cairns.
It was Graven Cairns.
It was Graven Cairns. Yeah, Nimbus Gate might be the one you're thinking of.
No, you're right. Okay. Getting my history backwards. But I do love me some Mystic Gate. That does not change.
Mystic Gate sweet. Mystic Gate sweet.
Yeah. Players are about ready in the feature match area. Let's go ahead and head down there and we can talk about the matchup and we can discuss things while they're getting situated. And then when they're ready to go, we can just let them fire it off. So we're going to have TJ Radizak on your left, John Parker on your right. The blue-white control deck I feel is going to be favored here. I think stuff like Supreme Verdict is in the deck, yes or no?
Looks like we got 2 Supreme Verdicts.
Supreme Verdict not being counterable just means that the creature plan from the breach deck is just not viable, or at least not that strong. You can ride a Ragavan early, but with all these spot removal spells like Prismatic Ending and Leyline Binding, I feel like the blue-white control deck's favored. What do you think?
I think it's going to depend a lot on whether or not the breach deck has a turn 1 Ragavan.
Okay.
Because the blue-white control deck, looking over the list, only has, I believe, just the 4 Prismatic Endings to answer a turn 1 Ragavan. If that happens,
Solitudes?
Sorry, Solitude as well. You're right. But that's not a whole lot of answers.
That's true. And pitching a Solitude on 1 never feels good.
No, it never feels good. And especially when these fairer breach decks have so many ways to reload. And once you get a little further on in the game, if you resolve a breach, bauble, expressive iteration, they can compete with the blue-white deck on a card-for-card basis.
Yeah.
So it's really going to come down to like this kind of tempo game plan where the breach deck probably isn't trying to extend too much into the blue-white's wraths,
right,
but also has to keep applying pressure.
All right. Well, looks like they are ready to go. So let's go ahead and get the ball rolling. Let's see who's on the play. It looks like TJ is going to be on the draw. John Parker going to start off with a fetch land.
This does not look like... I'm seeing John Parker blue-white control, but...
I thought John Parker was also on blue-white control.
Oh, John Parker submitted multiple deck lists.
All right, well, it looks like we have Hammer again.
And the name of the second list is blue-white life total control.
Which is very confusing. Definitely not confusing at all. John Parker is like the person who helps us set up. I can't be mad at him, right?
Yeah.
He's the person who like helps us set up all the freaking gauntlet stuff, and he's like supplying decks for Modern all the time and stuff. But get it together, JP. All right, turn 1 Sigarda's Aid, turn 2 Saga plus Esper Sentinel, and gonna go ahead and make a 11/11 Esper Sentinel. TJ Radizak is in some trouble already. These hammer decks in game 1 just coming out swinging.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the best starts available for blue-white hammer. It looks like we're gonna have a prismatic ending, eat this Esper Sentinel. I don't think that TJ can pay 11 mana, so John will get a card back.
Yeah, we get a card back.
Yeah.
No, shout out to King Ghidra for the raid. Thank you, my friend. Ghidra's a Magic Online streamer like myself, so big shout outs. TJ, after the prismatic ending, the card is drawn from JP, but a follow-up with Ragavan. Let's see if JP has anything to deploy here, or if we just want to start making some Saga tokens. Plays a second Saga, and passes the turn, so it looks like we're just going to be making some constructs.
Yeah, just Ragavan. We'll see if it's got a clear path in. You see a lightning bolt there from TJ. Might come down and pick off this construct token if it goes to block.
All right, TJ, you're gonna swing. JP going to take it. So no sorcery speed stuff. We're going to do everything end of turn to not be vulnerable to things like Teferi Time Raveler.
Esper Sentinel is the reveal from Ragavan. We'll see if TJ wants to make one.
I would probably love to make one.
Yeah, we should probably also make sure that we're going to have a treasure token made. There it is.
Okay. So 3 men at the ready for TJ. We're going to play a bauble. Who are we looking for? You. What you got? Hallowed Fountain, I believe, was the reveal. All right. We're going to draw a card from TJ, but EOT, we're going to make a token first. So let's see if TJ wants to kill the token now. I believe he probably will want to, but maybe he wants to wait until something is targeting, you know, like an equipment's targeting the golem or the construct.
Yeah, could very well could be. We're going to see, it looks like John make another, nope, just floating mana here.
Okay. Floating mana. We got one floating. We're going to go get something. With Sigarda's aid, it's going to be able to attach to the construct if that's what JP wants to do. And I believe JP also has Blacksmith skill in hand, so could protect from a removal spell as well. All right. Looks like we're going to go for a hammer. What you got, TJ? Now, with the mana floating, this is a tricky one here. With 1 mana floating, TJ Spell Pierce doesn't get the job done against the Blacksmith skill.
Yeah, we'll see if John actually remembers that he has the mana floating. I'm sure that...
It might be a Hail Mary play for TJ to hope that he forgets about the mana floating and just Spell Pierce anyway. Otherwise, you're just dead. Like, what are you going to do?
That's a good point. All right, Esper Sentinel trigger. John paid with the 1 mana floating. That's what he just said, and that Spell Pierce is going to come and get him.
All right, well, that is going to knock off the Golem. It's going to invalidate the Colossus Hammer for a turn. And it looks like John Parker's whole turn is basically going to be wrapped up. The Saga should be moving to 2. That is a non-missable trigger. At some point, we'll make sure that gets changed. Oh, here we go. We got it.
They pointed it out.
We got it. Thank you. All right, and back TJ's way. Draws for turn. Hand is not very good. 2 lands and a Ragavan, I believe. We're going to get a land off the top of the Ragavan and deal a little damage. Maybe buy a Gigantha this turn. Ooh, Underworld Breach in hand. Could go fetch Breach, play a couple baubles. Not too bad.
Very well could be.
Could play an Ending maybe and knock off Sigarda's Aid or something similar.
Yeah, at this point, I don't think that the Sigarda's Aid is too much of a concern. I mean, I suppose John could make a construct in his upkeep before the Saga goes to fetch and might fetch another hammer. So maybe we will go for the Breach here.
It makes sense, right? Like you have to do something about what's in play. Even if you just go, well, actually, never mind that. I was going to say a play that's not going to work, so never mind. But the Breach here, it's not even that good, right? You can play 1 bauble, and then you have 2 cards left in your graveyard. Like, is that really worth?
I think what's more likely to happen is TJ just passes the turn back here. If John goes for the make a construct line and gets another hammer, it can't attack immediately. So TJ would just be able to play Breach, Prismatic Ending the token, and continue on from there.
That's fair, because he doesn't have the mana open end of turn to make the construct. So there's no way to get haste here. Now, could choose to go get something like Gingerbrute instead. A haste creature, I believe, has Pure Steel Paladin in hand, so could get Gingerbrute and then play Pure Steel Paladin and equip it twice and attack for a big swing.
Well, that would be pretty good here if John indeed does have the Pure Steel Paladin, and it looks like.
I'm almost positive he does have Pure Steel Paladin, but I'm not positive he has Gingerbrute. Can we check the list real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. He does have a Gingerbrute.
Nice. Yep. That Gingerbrute is an X Factor card in these decks. It's pretty weak as a 1-of on paper when you draw it, but when you're fetching off Saga, it's like one of the only artifact creatures you can play with haste, and you just get more virtual copies for it. It's so sick.
Looks like he's going to go for the construct line.
Okay, well, it's still going to be a huge construct, but it's going to be sorcery speed, and it's not going to be that threatening. So we're going to make a construct, and then we're going to go get another hammer, and we're going to put it on the construct.
And TJ potentially, John potentially just passing up a lethal attack there.
Right.
I mean, maybe trying to play around something like another Lightning Bolt or Unholy Heat, but might just have been a misstep.
Yeah, I mean, with 1 mana up and 3 cards in hand, your opponent buying Giganta last turn and holding up a mana, you have to imagine like there's some piece of interaction there. It just turns out that there was a line that was lethal through the unknown information, but it's unknown information. It can be anything. It could be a combination of things that destroy you if you go for Ginger Brute.
Right.
My thing is I don't think that putting the hammer on the construct does that much. You know, like your Pure Steel Paladin is going to basically be able to do that next turn, and the threat of the kill I think is worth trying for it. But
I would agree. I mean, even if the only real way that you get blown out there is if there's a lightning bolt, really for both of those creatures.
Right.
Because either they have to deal with the Ginger Brute immediately, and then you can just go ahead and put both the hammers on the Pure Steel Paladin and pass the turn.
right, yeah.
Actually, no, that's not true. You lose Metalcraft.
Ooh, that's true. Maybe
yeah.
that was the thinking.
Yeah.
Losing Metalcraft to a removal spell was too bad.
Yeah, that might be where John was at, especially because he drew Giver of Runes for his turn before he went to search.
Okay.
So maybe he's just thinking, we'll just let this Giver of Runes try to hold down the fort a bit.
No, I like the play. Okay. Back TJ's way. We're going to draw Expressive Iteration. What a heater of a draw. We're going to find Fiery Islets. And I don't know what went to hand. Maybe just another land. Wow.
Yeah.
So the top of his deck, not very kind for him here. We're going to take a damage. We're going to play Underworld Breach. And now we can go Prismatic Ending. And then maybe one more spell.
Yeah, probably going to be Prismatic Ending plus Lightning Bolt here.
Okay. And that's really honestly the juice of Breach in this non-bow Breach deck, right? We're not playing combos. We're just going to play it to essentially be dig through time, where instead of looking at the top 7 of our deck, we get to look at the top X of our graveyard, where X is, some factor of 3 divided by the number of times you want to play the spell or whatever.
Right. And it looks like it's just going to be double Prismatic Ending here.
Okay, so we're going to take care of both creatures, and then we're going to slam, and that leaves Sigardazade, 3 hammers on the table. No need to hit Sigardazade. No need to hit the hammers. There's too many of all that stuff already. Unluckily for TJ, though, John Parker's about to untap, play Pure Steel Paladin, and make it a 32-32. Is that good?
Well, we certainly shall see.
They don't have trample, so we can block it for a little while. So TJ is not dead. And if he has like a nice little sequence of draws, could actually just steal the game next turn with like a Giganta attack and a Lightning Bolt or something.
Yep, it looks like, looking at John Parker's list, that he has access to a single Steel Shaper's Gift, which could enable him to find the Shadow Spear here.
Yeah, okay. So the Shadow Spear's an out and the Blacksmith Skill's an out. So we got essentially 2 outs to kill next turn, barring some sort of weird interaction we're not thinking about. Looks like we found Consider and Bobble, so we can do a little more digging. We can even just still play Gigantha, right? We just play our land, fetch, another island or whatever, and sack a treasure. And then if we ever draw a burn spell like a Lightning Bolt, we actually just have lethal on the attack next turn.
Yeah, Stoneforge Mystic actually is also an out here for John Parker because
Right.
of auto equip on Sigardazade.
Right.
There's a fair number of draws here that just all find the Shadow Spear for lethal.
Okay, well, let's see if John Parker can find it or if TJ can find a way to win the game this turn. I don't think it's going to be that easy, considering Consider and no Lightning Bolt in hand. Needs to find essentially a bolt off Consider and a bolt off the Bobble draw.
Yep, and here you also kind of have to question leaving the Prismatic Ending in the graveyard as opposed to bolting the Giver of Runes. Because the Underworld, if you were to find an Underworld Breach, that could have resulted in a couple Lightning Bolts for lethal.
All right, well, we're going to play the Gigantha like I thought we might, and then we're also going to draw for the Bobble. And John Parker, we knew the draw set was going to be a Blacksmith Skill, so because the shields were down, TJ was like, okay, I don't need to cast Consider, just Blacksmith Skill.
And it looks like John's just going to pass the turn back.
Yeah, what can you do? Attack?
Yeah.
You chump with Esper Sentinel, and then you attack back for 7, and game's over. Dragon Rage Channeler is a nice pickup for TJ. It does have flying, so we'll be able to crew on over as long as the Delirium is maintained. Right now we got Sorcery, Enchantment, Artifact, so not quite, but very close.
TJ's going to go digging, especially with that Fiery Islet available for another card draw. Finds a copy of Lightning Bolt.
All right, well, that should do it, assuming that... we have not perfect information. John Parker has one card in hand that's unknown. It was the draw from last turn. And TJ saw the Blacksmith skill as the other card. So this looks like a pretty easy attack for lethal with Bolt.
Yep, we're going to see the block on Giganta.
Okay, 3 damage goes through. We get a trigger on the Ragavan. We can find something like Spell Pierce, it'll be icing on the cake, right? Just make sure that there's no shenanigans.
And the Bolt upstairs.
That'll do it.
We're off to game 2.
Wow. Well played from TJ. John Parker there. Perhaps could have found lethal a couple different ways, but was trying to play around stuff that wasn't there, and TJ able to sneakily win game number 1. That Underworld Breach non-bow just generating a lot of micro advantages, and it's very hard for a deck like Hammer to beat just a torrent of interaction.
All right, let's go ahead and look at the sideboard for John Parker. He's got access to another copy of Blacksmith Skill to go along with the 2 in his main deck.
Okay.
2 Drannith Magistrates, 2 March of Otherworldly Light, 2 copies of Orvar the All-Form, 2 Path's Exile, a Pithing Needle, a Relic of Progenitus, a Spell Pierce, and 3 Sanctifier on deck.
All right, I'm a pretty big fan of Sanctifier in Vec. It's very difficult to kill, and it just like poses a lot of problems in a number of ways. The Relic of Progenitus seems solid. Don't love Pithy Needle, don't love Path Exile. March is medium. I love the Drannith Magistrates. They essentially shut down Breach completely. And then the Blacksmith skill is like, okay, you know there's a ton of spot removal, and usually it's okay to bring in Blacksmith skill when you know that that's in there.
Yeah, I think you might not see John bring in all of these things, especially on the play.
Yeah.
You're probably going to want to be a little more faster, which means maybe not board in so much of the interaction, but we'll see what he does choose to do.
Rubber Duck says this Value Breach deck looking good. I agree. We're going to be playing it in the Apex Gauntlet tomorrow. It's going to be fun stuff.
It's true. Tune on in to see that deck put through its paces. And speaking of that Breach deck, let's go ahead and look at TJ's sideboard as well. He's got 2 copies of Monastery Mentor, 2 Path to Exiles, 2 Flusterstorms, a Spell Pierce, 2 Engineer Explosives, 2 Wear Tear, 2 Lavinia Azorius Renegade, a Spell Snare, and that Giganta.
So from this side of things, you have to be really defensive. I think you want the 2 Path to Exile, the 2 Engineered Explosives, the 2 Wear Tear, and the Spell Snare. I think that combination of cards covers most of your bases. I don't love Spell Pierce. I think Spell Pierce gets stuck in your hand a bunch and doesn't quite answer the things, especially on the draw, that you might need them to. Whereas Spell Snare, on the other hand, can counter a Stoneforge Mystic on turn 2, or it can counter something like Pure Steel Paladin on turn 7.
Yeah, I mean, TJ just has a bunch of great options here. We saw how good the Engineered Explosives were earlier in the day for Ryan Hayes against the Hammer matchup. Expect those to do a lot of work, but I mean, the Breach non-bow deck certainly has a lot of interaction for this particular matchup. They came prepared, and I think we'll see that pay off in a big way.
Yeah. Excited to see the finale of this match, see if TJ can take it down and cash his ticket to the top 8. He's been in the chase for Player of the Year here on the Apex Gaming tournament circuit, and it's really showing that he knows what he's doing when it comes to Modern. He plays a wide variety of decks. Last night at F&M, he was playing Creativity and went 2-1, I believe, and like the deck just looked good, and he didn't play today, and I went up to him like, why aren't you playing the deck that you were playing yesterday? It looked great. And he's just like, Ryan said to play this deck. His buddy Ryan and him test together all the time, and Ryan's like, this is the deck. And I'm like, okay, all right.
Yeah, TJ made a very deep run also at the NRG event,
yeah,
the showdown
place.
in Louisville. Yeah, I watched him defeat Zach Allen in the last round back when TJ was playing Murktide, and he just put on an absolute clinic. Definitely someone to keep an eye on.
Yeah, TJ, so when I first came to Apex Home Store last year, TJ was one of the first people I interacted with where I thought, oh, this guy's good. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until the last event that we were hanging out here and I saw Ryan play, and I'm like, oh yeah, Ryan is great also. And so like those two players, I was told today that they just play test together, and that makes a lot of sense because they're both, playing similar decks or the same deck pretty regularly, and they both got a good head on their shoulders. So it makes a lot of sense. And if you want to be successful in Magic, you got to play test, and you got to find like-minded people who want to do the same.
Yeah, and certainly both of them are putting on good days here at this qualifier for the Apex Gaming Invitational.
All right, so John Parker's going to be on the play. It looks like we have a pretty weak hand, but probably going to keep it. We've already mulliganed, it looks like, so we're going to put a hammer on the bottom. Both players mulliganing, and we'll see what John Parker wants to lead with. Has Sanctifier on Vex, Stoneforge Mystic, and some land. This can't be that bad, right?
Yeah, notably no double white here to cast that Sanctifier on Vex, so it looks like he's going to be leaning pretty heavily on this Stoneforge Mystic. He's actually got 2 copies of Sanctifier on Vex in hand.
Okay. Well, that card is very powerful if you can get the second white source. Interesting enough, put back a hammer instead of the Ornithopter. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a little
Ding!
interesting.
Second white.
Yep, found it.
Party time. Worst day of your life. Sanctifier and Vet comes down. Nice Ragavan.
Yeah, I think with the Stoneforge Mystic already in hand, putting back the hammer's pretty reasonable. But I'm not sure about keeping the Ornithopter. That seems a little strange to me.
All right, I'm curious if TJ and Ryan had some conversations, but it looks like TJ has 2 answers to Sanctifier in hand. Not only the Prismatic Ending he's about to play, but also has a Path to Exile for later. And so Sanctifier number 1, not that problematic. We get to jam in with the Ragavan. And Sanctifier and Vec number 2, not problematic. And path it and keep on chunking in.
Yeah, we're going to see what happens here. It looks like that's going to be Prismatic Ending. I guess see if John opts to block with the Ornithopter.
I have seen someone do that before, and it's not great. You're trading a raw card, an Ornithopter, right, for a potential card and a treasure token. And the potential card is usually not going to be too fluid in the deck, So I think just keeping the Ornithopter around as a body for a hammer or something later just makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely, and we're going to see John Parker go for Sanctifier number 2 in an attempt to keep this Ragavan in check. We know, based on TJ's hand, that it is going to keep rumbling.
Yeah. Ooh, EE is the pickup, so that could be spicy later if he wants to maybe sandbag the Path to Exile for a little while with a Stoneforge Mystic in John Parker's hand. But could just, keep being aggressive. Just go Path to Exile your Sanctifier, keep attacking, We'll see what the play is here. Could go Path to Exile by Gigantha. Doesn't seem like that bad of a play. Might not want to Path to Exile, so you don't give an extra mana to John Parker in this spot. Might want to just save it until things get really sour, The Ledgerman, the Birdman.
The Bird Law has arrived.
Path, Connive, Trigger. All right, Trigger resolves. We got a Wear Tear off the top. Are we going to pitch a land? Probably.
It's either going to be the land or the Wear Tear, almost certainly. I think Engineer Explosives is a little too valuable.
I actually was thinking the other way. Because you've killed 2 Sanctifier and Vex, the Engineer Explosives is less valuable than the Wear Tear, because Wear Tear can not only blow up something that's currently in play pretty easily, but also if a Saga ever comes down or Sigarda's Aid ever comes down, you just have the clean 2-for-1 very cheaply. But both are great. So it's just a land 90% of the time. So.
Yeah.
Ragavan going to turn on in.
Yeah, especially because this Ragavan is just continuing to generate mana and card advantage.
Yep.
So you don't really need that land.
All right, Sanctifier and Vex.
3rd Sanctifier.
Yeah, but you can cast it. That's the thing you can do right now off those 2 treasures. Keep applying the pressure. It's just a 2/2 though, so I think the treasures might be more valuable for TJ, thanks to things like Underworld Breach and Gigantha both being mana sinks.
Yeah, he decides that they are, and just right on cue for you there, Todd. There's the Urza Saga. And it looks like John's going to follow that up with Stoneforge Mystic.
Now, has 3 mana floating here with those lands untapped. Could go get Nettle Cyst and play it, and that walks right into TJ's Wear Tear.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if Nettle Cyst was the play, simply because it would only end up being a 3/3 on this board. But we'll see what John opts for.
Well, it's another threat too, right? And I think Cauldron Complete makes some sense, because if your opponent doesn't have a bolt or something for the Stoneforge, you immediately punish them. But I think that we're just going to have a little bit of a rude awakening here. If TJ finds any piece of removal, that Cauldron's going to be rotting in hand forever.
Yeah, and TJ picked up a copy of Expressive Iteration. This Breach deck is looking incredibly strong.
Yeah, so we got Teferi, we got Bolt, we got Ledger Shredder. We're going to go Bolt revealed, Ledger Shredder on the bottom, Teferi to hand. We're going to use Bolt on the Stoneforge, and that's going to make sure that no shenanigans happen with the Cauldron Complete next turn. And we also have a Wear we can go ahead and just use on the Saga, which I really like, and maybe just a Wear Tear with all 3 treasure tokens and get the Ornithopter as well. All right, so we get a loot here, Connive. Can discard Bobble, looks like, to pump. Seems like the best option.
TJ agrees.
Okay. Well, Delver, I don't think that the old hammer is going to be here much longer. So get in your cheering while you can. Now, important to know, Inkmoth Nexus here can jump in the way of the Ragavan and trade, and that might be something John Parker is interested in doing here since he gets to untap with the Saga.
Looks like we got Shredder Shane saying he's a blue-white control player and a devoted Druid Coco guy. Neither of his decks seem to be around much. We did have a lot of blue-white control in the room.
Yeah,
today,
there's a ton of blue-white control. I think you just need to evolve a bit. I think the addition of Leyline Binding is excellent for the strategy.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the versions that play Ren and 6 as well.
Zach Allen really putting that on the map on the NRG series over the last couple months.
Yeah, but as a devoted Druid Coco guy, I feel your pain there.
Well, the new Nahiri might actually revitalize devoted Druid combo. We've been talking about this for the last couple days.
That's true, and the new Tyvar as well does very similar things. So you've got some options coming down the pike for maybe might be seeing a devoted Druid resurgence. Who knows? Certainly you will if I have anything to say about it.
Yeah. All right, well, here's Pure Steel Paladin. Looks like there was no block on the Inkmoth Nexus, so we got the treasure, and now we have Wear Tear at the ready. So we can kill the Saga and the token it creates. We can also kill Hammer and the token it creates. Or sorry, Hammer and the Saga.
Yeah, we'll see what the option is here. Notably, John does not have Metalcraft at the moment, although he has access to it by animating that Inkmoth.
All right, so here's what's going to happen. The Hammer's going to interplay. We're going to draw a card from the Connive first, and then if we don't draw a removal spell for the Pure Steel Paladin, we're going to let the Hammer interplay trigger on the stack. We're going to Wear Tear. We're going to blow up the Saga. We're going to blow up the Hammer. That's my guess. That'll turn off Metalcraft for future Hammer. Or maybe not, but...
Well, here's the other option, too, is you can let this happen. You can let Inkmoth Nexus animate, and then if John Parker decides to equip this Hammer and try to attack, you can blow up the Hammer after he's already committed more resources.
Okay. Well, finds a land. Now the question is, does John Parker have protection? If John Parker has protection for this, the game ends this turn. +10/+10 on the poison creature.
Well, you're going to always Wear Terror and blow up the Inkmoth Nexus itself. But that's probably not the line you want to go for. You're right. Blacksmith's skill in this situation is quite good.
Mm-hmm. So TJ might be responding to the activation of Inkmoth Nexus here. With that on the stack, there's no Metalcraft, and we could potentially do something about it. But it looks like he's going to go ahead and let it happen. So we're going to let it attack.
He knows the last card is Cauldron, right?
Ah, you're right. Okay, so perfect information. No harm, no foul. We're going to split the Wear Tear, or fuse it, excuse me. Let's see what the choices are. My guess, blowing up the Hammer and blowing up the Saga.
That would make the most sense to me as well.
All right, looks like he's going to go for the Inkmoth Nexus instead, allowing the Hammer to sit around for a turn, maybe looking to use that Injure and Explosives to take care of it, or take care of something else. Wear Tear got a lot better whenever they made Urza Saga, and you're seeing it be pretty brutal in some of these matchups so far today.
Lightning Bolt the pickup for TJ.
Incredible. This deck's
almost certainly going to go after the Pure Steel Paladin there.
I don't know if the deck is built correctly necessarily, but it looks great. And this is like first iteration, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly seeing it demolish these decks where the interaction's good.
Yeah.
I think the true test is going to be if the format adjusts to the point where the interaction needs to answer different things.
Right.
If it's a Jeskai deck where you can play removal, beat up creatures that way, this deck looks incredible. And but we'll see. You know, I could foresee this deck having maybe problems with something like Tron, like big mana decks, or even spell-based interaction.
Yeah, just because you're not comboing, you have to win with creatures.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like Splinter Twin. I keep going back to that. That was the deck I played a ton back in the day, and a lot of these principles carry over. And I think when you're playing a deck like Splinter Twin against Tron, you kind of have to go like all in on the combo because they're so good at fighting off just like normal decks. And one of the easiest way to beat Tron is to just ignore it and do something that kills them without them having any interaction. But it looks like we have John Parker packing it in. TJ just had him covered with the Injure Explosive, so that's going to be all she wrote. TJ Radizak going to be 5-1, moving on to the next round, likely able to draw into top 8 and get him some cash money and some more points as he tries to become Player of the Year here on the Apex Gaming circuit. So,
Mark Confidant brings up a good point. If Breach ever hits the ban hammer, we can just blame Ross. and you know what? I'm okay with that. I like blaming Ross.
Blaming Ross is pretty fun. He's in chat. So go ahead and just blame away,